Thanks for joining us. We're going to visit today with Jonathan Wier. This is a former radio grad who's doing really well in radio. So he agreed to join us this morning. And Jonathan, there you are. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how you doing? Great. How you guys doing?
We're good. First of all, I want to know about you, but tell me about the family. How are things going with you?
Oh, it's good. We moved out here to Boston about a year and a half ago, and we lived in Kansas City for 8 years. Loved it in Kansas City. If you've never lived there or been there, it's very similar to the St. Louis area, only just newer and just, I hate to say, it's a little bit cleaner. And other than that, it was pretty much like home. It just felt like I was home still. And then had a really successful radio show out there that they decided cost too much money. And so they told me to get lost. And came out here to Boston to a much better station and market, and it's worked out great. Love it out here. Family, it's taken some adjustment. If you've never lived on the East Coast, it's not like going from St. Louis to Kansas City. It's like going from St. Louis to Mars. It's entirely different. It is, the roads don't make sense. The people are, I don't dislike the way the attitude is, but it takes some adjustment. I actually like it because people are very outspoken and have no problem telling you exactly what they think about you every second of the day. I like that because I hate passive aggressiveness.
Right.
But it does take some adjustment. And the good news is the schools out here are great. So with 2 kids, that's wonderful. I don't know if my wife has left the house since the pandemic started, though. I think she's using COVID as an excuse to just be like, no, everything comes on Amazon now. Did you know they deliver food now? I didn't, but they do. So, yeah, it's going great, though.
So let's go through that track in radio. So you were here learning at the radio broadcasting program here. You were production director for us. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I want you to share some stories.
Absolutely.
But take us through that path. I believe you went to Florida first?
Yeah. So I went, I was through WLCA. I got an internship at 97.1 in St. Louis and became the afternoon producer for the Dave Glover Show, which is now going to be on KMOX, which seems weird to me.
Right.
And went from there. I was a producer there for a couple of years, sent out a couple demos to some stations after about a year and a half, 2, and was talked into moving to Florida by a station, WSKY in Florida, another talk station. And went down there and was on a radio station with a guy in the afternoons named Chip, who was a really nice guy to work for. And I am incredibly grateful for that station because they really made everything after everything I've done after that station has seemed easy because I was working at least 100 hours a week. I was the assistant program director, imaging director, production director, afternoon show co-host, and then hosted my own show on the weekends. And so because sleep became a priority at some point in my life, I decided I put in a lot of work here. After about a year, there was an opening at KMBZ in Kansas City for the midday show. Went up to Kansas City, did pretty well on the midday show, and then they moved me to evenings where I really found my niche. Because sometimes in radio, that's kind of the most important thing. Is it's not so much you developing, that does matter, but a lot of it is also just you finding your comfort zone and being able to excel in that. And doing that evening show in Kansas City, I was just given total freedom. So the program director was like, I don't care what you do, just don't cost us the license. And I did really well. We were number 1 in every demo from June of 2018 to May of 2019. We were number 1 in our key demo, men 25-54, women 25-54, on and on and on. Just did really well. And then when my contract was up, I had the audacity, as again, this is something you guys will go through if you have a job in radio, you have the audacity to go, well, I have good ratings, so maybe that should translate into more money for me. The station didn't see it that way because, and to be fair to them, it was an evening show. Not a lot of people are having live programming in evenings.
Sure.
Right now. So we parted ways, and I was fortunate enough to get this job out here in Boston, which has been going really well. Even though it's a genre of music I never thought, and Mike, you know me, I would have never thought I'd work in country radio.
Right.
I'm much more in tune with what you guys play on WLCA. Alternative rock was always what if I was going to do music, that's what I wanted to get into. And it didn't happen. And that's fine, because I realized something, again, it's not necessarily about the genre you work in, it's about how you can connect with the audience despite those differences. And things have been going really well out here. So,
we've always used the format to try to attract students to the program, but then early on we say, hey, it's just what your product is. You may have a different product at another place, so we're going to teach you radio regardless of the format. But yeah, it's amazing, John, how many former students we have in country radio, which is kind of odd.
Country radio does well. I mean, it was me and Amanda Valentine. It was in the program I was friends with before either one of us were actually in the program. We were friends in high school. She went on to be in country radio, and which made me feel a little more comfortable being in it because she literally used to have a bumper sticker on her car that says "Stop inbreeding" and "Stop country music." So the important thing though is it doesn't matter what genre you're in if you can put a compelling product on the air. You'll do fine. You'll succeed. In fact, I've actively said on the air many times that I hate country music, that I don't like it. I'm like, it's not for me. It's nothing against anybody who listens to it. It's fine. It's fine that you like it. And some of it, I mean, I'll be honest, having to hear it every day, it's grown on me a little bit.
Sure.
But I'm still not a fan of it. I wouldn't listen to it on my own. And I'm honest with that, with the audience. And
how does that set with them?
They love it because this is the thing about country music and the country audience. They prize, and I think most radio audiences prize authenticity over everything else. So it would be, if I was getting on air, go, hey, Luke Combs, there's a new smash hit by him. Just another song about his dumb girlfriend. That if I was faking it, you can tell.
Sure.
You can just tell. And I think they just really appreciate it. They're like, well, yeah, he doesn't like the same music as me, but he seems like somebody I could have a beer with is the important thing.
Tell me about your morning show partner.
Ayla is my morning show partner. She came to radio, as some people do sometimes, completely by accident. She was on American Idol back in 2005. I don't remember. On one of the big seasons, like the season with like everybody that everybody remembers, with the one where the Soul Patrol guy, the one with gray hair, Taylor Hicks won, and she was. But everybody was on that season. And Daughtry, I think, was the winner. Daughtry, whatever his name is.
Kansas City area, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's from Kansas City, which is why I pronounce his name
Daughtry.
It's funny because I started saying it wrong on purpose. I don't remember what the actual right way to say it is anymore, but whatever it was, I would say it wrong on purpose just to make people angry. Because we had a text line in Kansas City, and I would just love it. It's pronounced Daughtry or whatever. Like you're saying, I think that's what it was. Hey, it doesn't matter. She was on that season. And it was pretty, well known locally. Moved to Nashville, tried to be a country music artist, and then filled in on radio on a couple morning shows, and then was offered a job back here. She has the complete opposite life of me, and that's what makes our show work, because we're totally two insanely different people who get along, which is kind of rare. I mean, she's the daughter. She was on American Idol. Forget that. She could be a model. She's gorgeous. But on top of that, her dad was the senator from Massachusetts. After Ted Kennedy died, he's the one who won his seat.
Oh wow.
Scott Brown. That's her dad.
So she's connected then.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. She's very well connected. She knows a lot of people. I mean, when I started, she was like, "Oh, we can't say anything negative about New Zealand." And it's like. I don't know why I would say something negative about New Zealand, but why? And she's like, my dad's the ambassador to New Zealand now, and he will get very upset if we say anything bad about New Zealand. So, of course, in the first thing that I think one of the first things I said on air was, making fun of hobbits from New Zealand. But yeah, but she's a wonderful person to work with, and it's the kind of relationship where our weaknesses complement each other's strengths. Whereas I'm not a great people person, she is a really good people person. Whereas I'm a pop culture nerd, she has no idea. I made a joke about Darth Vader today, and she was like, who? I was like, okay. I don't have 20 minutes to explain to you who Darth Vader is, so I'm just going to let it go.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very symbiotic, perfect radio coupling, and I'm very fortunate to be working with her. And also our producer, Jim, is wonderful as well. Jim, our producer, was on the Maddie Show out here, which is the #1 show in Boston and was for like 20 years. And then he wanted to be on a show with a little more of a platform where he could speak, because there's like 5 or 6 people on that show. And he jumped ship and joined our show, and he's fabulous. It's weird for me because I'm so used to doing everything. Like I said, that first job I had after St. Louis when I was in Florida, I was literally doing every single thing at the station other than actually hosting a show. So being here and just being a host and not doing all the other crap that comes along with it is a little weird for me.
So you're now at a country station, which we've already kind of addressed that. How has it been during the pandemic with the lack of concerts and the lack of going out and meeting the audience? And how is that different than places you've been before? And because it seemed like with country music, that would be a big thing, is to be interactive with that audience.
Yeah, I guess I'll sugarcoat it a little bit and say it's absolute hell. It is hell on earth. It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. It hasn't hurt our ratings as much, but it has definitely affected our growth. Because part of being on a music station is the promotions and concerts, and I was just starting to get my feet wet when it came to introducing bands and speaking in front of the last show we did right before this all shut down was Dan and Shay, who's like one of the biggest bands in country music. And Ayla and I went out and just talked up the audience for 10 minutes, and it was fabulous. It was amazing. Like I've never had an experience like that. It was so much fun, and I couldn't wait to do it again. And we'd had a concert scheduled for May. It was called Party on the Harbor, and it got canceled like in March, and so it's been really tough. It also, because there's less people on the roads, that means that there's less people not just listening in their car, but less people to call in. So we were doing a very fun, engaging, interactive morning show with lots of calls, lots of response from the audience, and then all of a sudden, nothing, just crickets, nothing. So it entirely changed how we could do our show, and it changed our relationship with the audience, honestly, and we're still dealing with that here a year later. Again, our ratings have been okay. I really feel like we would be in a better spot had the pandemic not happened, because my strength really is in audience engagement and getting the best out of callers and getting funny stories on air. But the silver lining it also focused us on the show itself, and a lot of things that I think a lot of people don't think about when it comes to teasing and the structure of a break and all that stuff. Like it has to be perfect now.
I tell people when they ask me about the pandemic and, enrollment in our college and our program specifically, it's, the pandemic has hurt. I think it's easy to recover with some new things that we're trying to do. But it also taught us some things, right? I mean, it taught us how to go on the air from home and set up studios in students' houses, and being able to deliver some of our courses, which is better delivered via Zoom than it is probably in the classroom, because everyone has their own workstation. And so things are different there. But yeah, I mean, similar with us, John, you know how much here we like to do a bunch of remotes and do a bunch of concert ticket giveaways, and that just hasn't been there, and that's so vital to our format. And I could assume that it was the same for country.
It was tough. You guys are actually lucky if you're able to do it from home. I'm not. currently I have a home studio because I have a podcast that I do as well. But I've had to go in to the radio station every single day.
Yeah.
Like everyone else I know in radio got to stay home and sleep in. Not me. Because it's still, even with nobody on the road, this is how bad the roads are in Boston. It's still a 60-minute commute round trip to work. I mean, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes to there, 30 minutes back. When traffic starts up again, it'll be 45 minutes to an hour every day. But yeah, everyone else, that would be an extra 60 minutes of my day that I get back. But instead, no, I'm sitting in the car.
Now, many of my students, they'd rather be here. As a matter of fact, I'd rather be in the office too. Much.
Oh, I know. It's just, I would just like to test it. I just like to see if I like it or not. I have no choice. Well, I would just like to know what the difference is.
Yeah, I can tell you some mornings I can do class from home, and that's nice, depending on which day it is. So it's nice to have that option for sure.
Not having to put on pants. I mean, come on, Mike. It's the greatest.
So let's go back to your time here, if we would, a little bit. So when you were here with us, you were our production director. You also did your own show on air. Tell us about your time here and how you reflect on that time. What is that reflection like?
Oh, I always talk about it as one of the greatest year and a half, 2 years of my life, because you probably remember this, before I started in the program, I had done a little bit in radio before that. On 97.1, they had this talk show host survivor competition, and I tried out for that and won, and they let me, they gave me a show for a month, and then were like, okay, you're like 20 years old, get out of here, you can't do a talk show at 20, which is fair. And so I was coming into the program thinking I knew what I was doing and had no idea. So it was great because I learned so much, but I loved being a part of that. I loved the energy around the station. I got to tell you, I loved being around people who were on their way up, instead of what I've experienced a lot of in radio is a lot of people have plateaued. A lot of people have gotten to a point where they're comfortable, and good for them. It's awesome, but they're at a stage where they're 45 years old. They've been doing this job for 20 years or so, and they're just like, this is my market. I make good money. I'm comfortable. I'm fine, and they don't try as hard. They don't have the ambition that you guys have at WLCA, and that's what made it fun. That's what makes working at that station in my head when I remember it. It made it so fun because it was just a whirlwind of ideas and goofing off on air and trying to figure it out. Because when you start off at something and you're bad at it, but you have those moments where you're good, those feel better than any point later when you get it right.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I get most things right on air now.
Right.
When we talk we have a consultant meeting once a week, and it's just it's nitpicky little things like, you could have led that tease off with a more engaging whatever, like just nitpicky little things. But when they compliment me, I'm just like, yeah, I know, whatever. like again, you get to a point where you're just kind of comfortable and you know what you're doing.
Right.
Back then, getting something right, doing an air check in class, getting a compliment from you, it was everything. It was, and going through that with the people in the class. I'm not going to remember, honestly, like some producer that was on a different shift as me at KMBZ from 10 years ago.
Right.
I'm not going to remember their names, but I'm going to remember Steve and remember Snickers. Some people I'm going to remember not as fondly, but there's it's right. But it's just a great group of people, and like I said, it's great because you feel like you're all in it together, which is not the feeling you get in competitive corporate radio.
and I can tell you, John, that's been one of the things we've been lacking with the pandemic and being at home, is just not being able to see students work together. And I feel bad for those students who've been doing it for the last year plus, But we can't wait to get back together. And when we come back fully, we've got a bunch of new things to show them, and that's making radio more visual, kind of like what we're doing now. We've always taught podcasting, or have for the last several years within a class. Now we're just kind of expanding that to go, all right, we need to make a visual footprint. So part of what we're doing now is using software that students will learn how to use to do interviews like this with you, but also create their own podcast. And believe it or not, John, you're not going to believe this, but we have monitors that we can do logoing on, and the reason why we do that is I want to be able to change that logoing out so students can come in here and do a podcast on whatever they want and not have me tell them they can't. Wouldn't you love to have that back when you were a student?
Yeah, I would have loved. I mean, I remember when we started, Tim Albright, he taught us, it was radio recording. It was the production class.
Right.
And part of that was podcasting, and it was so quaint because this was like 2007, and people were like, what? I don't know what a podcast, like nobody knew what it was. And I kind of did, because after my time pretending to be a talk show host at 20 years old, I then tried podcasting before I got into WLCA, and it's a totally different environment than it was back in 2007. But it's so great that you guys are doing that, because on one hand, it's stressful for me as a radio person because there's so many competitive challenges out there. On the other hand, if I was a young person, I would love it because there's so many different options that you have. You know, you can be good at so many different things now that you don't just have to be good at being a host or whatever of a radio show.
Yeah, it's been a learning curve for us too in teaching it. We always try to stay. I mean, I think you can admit when you were here, our technology was always at the even par with commercial stations, and so
wait, hold on, Mike. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
The technology there is better.
All right.
The technology there is better than most commercial stations. I went from using Pro Tools at WLCA to using something called Saw Plus 32.
Oh, wow. That's a really old program.
Yes. Yeah. It was a Windows, not even Windows 95, a Windows 3.0 DOS program.
Right.
And so it was amazing because people are... The great thing, though, is coming from such advanced equipment that you guys have there. And by the way, better equipment than I think... I don't know what kind of voodoo that you're doing, Mike, but... I don't know anybody in any college program that has as good of equipment as WLCA does. So when I went from WLCA to like any other station, people will be like now we're almost to that point. Like we're using Adobe Audition and Pro Tools here in Boston, and I know what I'm doing because of what I did in college. And people are always like, "How do you know this?" Like, because I went to a good college. What do you want me to tell you?
Well, you know what helps too is when you go ask for things, and being able to have people who've had success like you and go, "Here's why." We've got this guy who's killing in Boston, and we have this guy in Phoenix, and we have this guy in Atlanta, and this guy and person in Cincinnati. So partly it's because of you guys, because of what you've done with your careers. So congratulations on your career.
Well, thank you. It's reciprocal, though. We wouldn't have the career without you. So.
Oh, I appreciate that, but you guys make your own path. That's for sure.
All right.
So share a story with me, if you would, from your time here. Something that's fairly PG, since we'll use this whole thing to kind of promote the program. So do you have anything you can share from here? A couple stories or something that you think of often?
Yeah, I think of how I kind of covered this earlier. I said how much fun it was because everybody was starting out and ambitious and young. And I just remember, this isn't a story necessarily, I just remember the feeling that I haven't had since I was at WLCA. And it was being on the road at 5 o'clock in the morning, driving from Fairview Heights, Illinois, where I lived, 40 minutes to Godfrey, and being so incredibly excited about the show that I was about to do and having no idea how it was going to go. I remember like specific instances of just absolute joy on air. I remember there was. Oh wait. This is PG. It's fine.
Okay, all right.
But I remember doing the morning show, and we had to give away Carlos Mencia tickets because no one else wanted to give them away. I think I don't remember what our reasoning was, but we had like 30 of them that we had to give away in one day, and so we were like saying there's a truckload of Carlos Mencia tickets that turned over on the highway. Call in and get them. And even then, we couldn't get people to call.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, if you call in for these tickets, then Snickers will, rap on air. And then we put like a beat underneath him rapping, and then he rapped. Another fun one was, this is my favorite moment because no one else would ever let me do this, except for you. It was the day we flipped the station, which is funny in retrospect because of what I do now. But you let us on April Fool's Day 2008 on our morning show. We said, hey, WLCA is no longer going to be playing alternative music. We're not doing this college rock stuff anymore, and we're going to be switching to a country station. This is the most popular radio format in the country. It's what we're doing. So, guys, that's what's happening. And we went off air, came back, and I was Farmer John, and Snickers was the possum. And we just did a show like this and played country music, and people were losing their ever-loving minds.
I remember
that. They
were
calling the station. They were yelling at us. They were screaming. And, we would go from, all right, yep, we'll be back. And then calling, and people were like, what is going on? And be like, I don't know, man. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
They're making us do this thing. I don't know.
They're making us do this. I don't want to do it. I hate this music. I don't know what to tell you. And it was great. It was absolutely great. It was so much fun, and it really, even if I haven't been able to replicate something like that in my current professional radio career, it was great seeing where you could go creatively with radio. Even if you can't do the exact same thing, it's just great to be able to see what you can do. And that's what WLCA allows people to do. It allows you to see where you can go.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier. The part of the joy for me in doing this is seeing those students grow and seeing them break through a barrier that was there and actually have some success and building the confidence. And once that happens, then they just take off. And that's what's so fun to see on my end.
Yeah, you said it. It's confidence. That's what I got. I remember, even though I'd done, a little bit of radio before, I still remember before my first air shift throwing up, like just being so anxious about going on air at WLCA, and this was my first. So, okay, look, I'm number 3 in my market right now. I just bought a Tesla yesterday.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm making good money, is my point. Okay,
right,
I'm doing
right,
okay.
Right.
But it's just a show where you can go from starting off awful.
Yeah.
My very first air shift, I got on air and did a 30-second thing before the stop set for the commercial, or not the commercial break, but the before song break, and did 30 seconds, and then got off air and went, whew, that was good. And then realized I'd never turned my mic on.
Yeah.
I stopped the music. I sat there for 30 seconds saying stuff that no one heard. Then I complimented myself on how good I was, and then I started the music again, only to realize that nobody heard that because I didn't have my mic on. It got better.
It's students do it the other way, right? The mic's on, and then they mess up and leave it on, and then drop expletives because they made a mistake.
Oh boy, yeah. Actually, had a producer back at my talk station left the mic on while I was in the studio. And we didn't know that. And fortunately, I did not, because I've been good my entire career about if there's a mic, treat it like it's live, which I picked up from you. So I didn't curse. I didn't say anything. I didn't go on some weird, I don't know, tangent about Samoans or something. I'm trying to think of anybody I could have been insulting. But I was on air, and I started getting texts. So I'm like, dude, what's going on? I can hear your voice in the background. Please don't say anything that's going to get you fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining me this morning, man. It's great to catch up with you, and thank you for being one of our success stories. It's fantastic, and I wish you a long, fantastic career, and keep doing your thing in Boston on a country stage. I can't wait till we go back and I start seeing all those photos of you being at country concerts.
Yeah, right. It's going to be fun. And no, I sincerely mean this from the bottom of my heart, Mike. Thank you for putting together what I still believe, I've been all over the country, I still believe is the best college radio station in the entire country. Yeah. I say that in total respect to the college stations out here. I've listened to them. They're awful. I've listened to people in St. Louis. I lived in Kansas City. Lived in Florida. I mean, at UF right there in Florida. They bragged about their college program. And I even toured their station. Nothing compared to what we have at WLCA.
Well, I appreciate it, man, and thank you so much. And let's do this again soon, yeah?
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, that's Jonathan Wier. Thanks for joining us this morning, and we'll be back with more success stories of Lewis and Clark graduates. Stay tuned.